am joined by Shamima Singh, who is founder and president, EVP, Centre for Inclusive Growth at Mastercard. A pleasure to meet you. Thank you for joining me. We're also joined by Sunil Kushal, Regional CEO for Africa and the Middle East for Standard Chartered. Sunil, welcome to the stage. Thank you for joining us. And we're also joined by Rima Qureshi, Executive Vice President and Chief Strategy Officer at Verizon. Rima, welcome. Thank you so much. How's Davos treating you so far?
So far, so good.
So far, so good. Good. I'm glad you're all enjoying yourself.
Busy, yeah.
I bet you've all been busy. And anyway, so last push before you can head to the bar.
Sure.
Okay. Sunil, it's been said, hasn't it, that the global pandemic has created what everyone is describing as a great acceleration when it comes to technology, in terms of digital innovation, pushing many of us onto digital payment platforms and certainly e-commerce platforms. So what do you hope the development of literally the last 2 years tells us about the innovation of the next few years coming down the line?
So, of course, it's well known that it has accelerated in terms of the shift towards digital, in terms of access to products as well as services. And what is created is really a leap forward. We believe at least 5 years, it's been a leapfrogged at least 5 years in terms of initiating customers to use services and products, including financial service products, through digital channels. And that has resulted in a couple of things. So we look at innovation in sort of two buckets. One is new business models emerging. And what do I mean by that? Banks actually using partnerships, say partnerships with telecom companies, partnerships with e-commerce companies to really acquire customers. And then innovation in processes, either it is onboarding of customers or credit decisioning or delivery of the service or the credit itself. So it has clearly accelerated, and with the shift of more customers on a digital platform, also accelerated innovation.
Okay. Rima, Verizon, of course, one of the world's biggest telco companies. So you have your hands on a huge amount of data. And I know that you found recently that I think, is it 95% of the world is covered by broadband, yet just 50% of the population of the world use it or have access to it. So why is there such a disparity, and what are the barriers to entry when it comes to adaptation?
So 95% of the world has geographic coverage, but I think that stat also has to be broken down.
Right.
In terms of if you cover it based on population, you're obviously going to have gaps within the rural areas. So that's an area that we need to think about. Traditionally, we have thought about connectivity as an issue of coverage. And if you have coverage, they will come and everything will be solved. But the problem is much more complex than that. It is threefold. And one of that aspect is connectivity or accessibility. Mm-hmm. The other area is affordability. And the last one is usability. And really, we need to start focusing beyond the coverage gaps that we need to address, is the fact that 2.7 billion people are not connected to the internet, and that's because they cannot afford the devices, or they don't have the digital literacy, or they don't have the applications and uses in their language to be able to access financial services, health services, education, entertainment, whatever else it may be. So those are the aspects of the gap that we are trying to address right now. Cover where there are gaps, ensure there is enough capacity, but also ensure that you can have devices that people can afford, either through cheaper devices, which obviously has to be part of it, but through financing schemes, through subsidies, whatever else that we need to be able to support them and to create that local content and create that digital literacy so that we can get everyone connected.
I mean, it's an extraordinary large number of people, isn't it? And I know that the project is huge, and I'd love to talk to you about that in more detail. But Shamima, first, let's bring you in now, because I know at Mastercard you also have a huge amount of data at your hands, and I know that you believe that a tech innovation is central to unleashing economic potential. So what have you found in terms of demand when it comes to the digital economy?
It's massive. I mean, even before COVID, we had recognized that the world was going digital, and COVID accelerated that transition to digital 100-fold. What does that mean for MasterCard? I think we can, sort of summarize the way we look at it by saying you can't have the internet of everything without the inclusion of everyone. Mm-hmm. And that's the way we focus our work. So whatever we do at Mastercard, whether it's our financial inclusion efforts that is also part of our business strategy to help digitize across the value chain for the company, I'll give you a little bit of a statistic just to build on Sunil's here, which is for the first time, 70% of adults in the world have some sort of account to transact. That's an enormous population of people who have never had the ability to transact before. So we have the possibility for the first time to digitize at a scale that we've never had the possibility before to do. I'll just give you one quick example, okay? So turning my remit at the Center for Inclusive Growth is to turn the assets of Mastercard to social and environmental impact. Many times that means digitization. So we have a project going in Egypt where we're digitizing the wages of factory workers, most of whom are women. So if you're trying to work with populations around the world who are sometimes outside of the formal economy at scale, go to the industries where they're working. In this case for us, we wanted to help the most women possible. So we started to help work with Levi's and other companies to digitize the wages. They're paid in cash in the factories. Once we started digitizing their wages, our data showed that they went from 0% trust into a digital system to 100% trust. The savings rates went up, the money stayed digital, and the women started to save. So their savings rates are going up, and they have more control over their purchasing power. That, to me, is a really good example of technology for inclusive growth.
And then they get a digital identity, and then they can get credit because they have that kind of track record.
Exactly, and it just builds and builds and builds.
Sunil, I know this plays very well into what you're doing within your region, the AME region. And this is a population that's very young. We know particularly in Africa, it's the population of the future. They are young, some of them very digitally savvy. So what are their needs? And I know that you're doing great work to kind of meet those right now.
So we started a digital bank in Africa a few years back, and now we have 9 markets. And clearly, few things that stand out with the rapid urbanization, and it's a very youthful population with a median age of 19. What they require, I would put it into 3. One is payments, ease of payments. The second one is credit. And the third one is SME finance. And these are all areas where traditionally the legacy banks have been quite poor, either in terms of either delivery or the cost of service. The other point I would like to make, just building on what Rima said in terms of coverage and affordability of instrument, we also realize that affordability of access to broadband and data is a huge issue. So even the applications which we had to devise in a way that the download, the amount of capacity it took over, or the amount of data it used for downloading had to be the minimum. And if the coverage was broken, you had to move towards what is called USSD. You basically use SMS to give a message and you get the service delivered to you. So you had to be very, very, very innovative. And so these are the demands these are the pockets of demand which are there, and they're growing at a huge pace.
What growth have you seen?
Sorry?
What growth have you seen?
Oh, we are seeing, just to give you the numbers, first of all, in terms of acquisition, we are a 160-year-old legacy bank in Africa. We acquired the same number of customers in 3 years, what we acquired in 160 years. So it's a different dimension. Now, you've got to be very careful because you just can't play the numbers game.
Yeah.
You have to really have a customer value proposition so that you're able to target the right customer segments that you want and that you can service efficiently and bring in the right products to them. And there again we discovered, there was this whole image of, say, wealth management and savings. If you're going and doing wealth management or savings with Standard Chartered or an international bank, or even with a bank, that you needed thousands of dollars. We democratized savings. We fractionalized it. Today, you can enter with $50 to $100, and you can redeem and get your money back in a couple of days. So you can go in and out. And that's taken it to the next level. It suddenly opened up a big segment that was not used to saving. They always felt reluctant they felt actually embarrassed that they had $200 in their account, and where was the question of going and asking a bank to save it for them? So by bringing the entry point low, the volumes go up.
Yeah.
So maybe in the affluent markets, you have big ticket transactions. Here you have the numbers.
Yeah. Let's bring you in now, Reem, because I know that you've outlined very nicely for us the demand, the number of people, and they're not all based in the AME region, but a huge number are. And you, as a company, are doing great work within the Edison Alliance. I know I think it's a target of getting 1 billion people connected. Just tell us a little bit more about the Edison Alliance and your work at Verizon to kind of contribute to that.
Absolutely. And so the Edison Alliance was something that we formed in January 2021.
Right.
And it's a joint activity between what we call champions, the World Economic Forum,
Yep.
and Verizon as the chair. I'm the deputy chair. And the objective of this alliance, and Mastercard is
Yes,
a board
I was
member,
going to say, Mastercard.
as well as Apollo Hospitals, Vista Equity Partners, UNDP, and I'm probably going to forget someone, but we
It's like an Oscar thank you speech. You can't forget.
Yes. So the objective that we have with the Edison Alliance is to address what we saw. As Sunil mentioned, yes, we've had a lot of people connect, but what we have seen is those connections are uneven. Not everybody who deserves to be on the internet, as we talked about the stats, are there.
Yeah.
And those that don't have the coverage or don't have the ability for whatever reason, affordability or usability, have actually taken a step backward as a result of the pandemic. Right at the time when they needed that access even more than before, because we had the luxury of being able to stay safe in our homes, get our online education for our children, online healthcare, online financial support. But if you don't have those basic capabilities, and that is the only way you can transact, then we have a challenge. So our objective was, in some cases you could say we're not reaching those 2.7 billion, but we're gonna start with a relatively ambitious target. 1 billion is a lot.
Yeah,
Is a lot.
That's ambitious.
And our objective is to reach those 1 billion people by 2025. Which
is really literally around the corner, isn't it, if you think about it?
Yes, and I have some great news, because today we actually launched our first impact report where we reported where are we after our launch of the Edison Alliance 2 years ago. We are at 454 million people impacted. The impact report is available, and it provides all the details on how did we do the calculations, where are the areas we've been successful, which are the areas we still have work to do, and that's what's helping us determine which are the areas that we need to go forward with. We will do what it needs to be done to reach our 1 billion target, and our objective is if we do that before 2025, then we'll raise that target.
Oh, right. Excellent. I want to bring you back in, Shamima, because I know that you're part of this, but you also have amazing targets of your own at Mastercard. I think it's 50 million businesses to you, or to kind of connect with 25 million female entrepreneur businesses. I mean, how do you go about doing that? Because it's all very well saying it, isn't it? But how do you find these people? How do you connect with them? There's an issue of trust to overcome and all those kind of things.
Right, I think you raised a good point. I mean, it is a massive commitment, and we should also say that Reem is on the board of Mastercard.
Yes.
So there's
We'll
a
know each other
wonderful
very
connection
well.
here between all of the work that we're doing. But it's important because you can't do any of this work in isolation.
No.
And so what the Edison Alliance is doing is really illustrating the power of partnership. How we're doing our work around financial inclusion and small businesses really require an entire ecosystem of organizations that have complementary assets that come together to serve the population. So in our case, not only have we tied that goal and that achievement, we tied it to compensation, along with a gender equity statistic and our net zero commitment. So we have done the work to say not only are we integrating it into Mastercard's business strategy, so financial inclusion for Mastercard, it's a business strategy and it's an impact strategy. And now it's embedded in our compensation. But we do the work with all of our products to make sure that they're inclusive by design, they are innovative by choice, and that they all have to ladder up to trust. And so as we are on the journey to not only 500 million, we reached 500 million at the height of the pandemic and then doubled down and said, now we're going to reach 1 billion people to bring them in to the digital economy. And then along with the small business work, we said, okay, we're going to allocate $250 million to make sure that we bring in 50 million small businesses to 25 million of which have to be women-owned or women-run. Now, when you're talking about Mastercard, which has a network that already includes like 90 million businesses, 3 billion cardholders all around the world, that's the kind of scale that you have to shoot for.
Yeah, it's extraordinary. And I know that, Sunil, I think 50% of Standard Chartered's income is aimed to come from digital initiatives in the future, which is, again, another bold target, isn't it? Are you on track for that?
New businesses, and as I said, different models that we are adopting and innovative ways of doing things. And we are well on our way. We have several initiatives, is not only within the bank, but also through our ventures arm, which has come out with a lot of new product ideas, as well as new initiatives which are there. One example would be on the SMEs. We have a platform which is a marketplace called Solve. A bank such as Standard Chartered has its limitations in terms of the number of SMEs you can onboard. This platform is an open platform which not only we participate, we also have other banks participate. And that already, just after its launch, it has got a couple of 100,000 SMEs already on board. We've launched it in India, we've launched it in Ghana, now we're going to launch it in Kenya, and then really accelerate. So we are very optimistic. And in fact, actually, if you look at when you say from new businesses and new ways of doing businesses, it is evolving so quickly that a bank is going to get probably much more than 50% from doing things in a different way. So that's quite powerful.
Okay, it sounds expensive as well. In terms of capital expenditure or bringing in investment, how is all that going, Rima?
So I think these are actually great examples when I hear Sunil talk about this. So the important premise in all of the work that we're doing with digital inclusion is eventually this is customers that we are bringing online, and this has to be commercially viable. Otherwise, it will become a project that remains on the side and it will never scale.
It becomes charity, which is
exactly. And in the long term, that does not scale and it doesn't solve the problem. And I think Sunil's example is brilliant, which is, yes, we have limitations potentially on the cost of the data that you're transferring through this app, and therefore let's find innovative ways of doing that. This is exactly the type of things that we need to do to solve these problems. And this is really part of the objective of the Edison Alliance is like, okay, my equivalent in Africa is going to put the connectivity and that accessibility in place and do what's needed to do that. Sunil is going to create the applications, and we're going to make sure that we have the microfinancing if that's what we need, or other solutions to then be able to holistically come up with something that everybody can use. We all have a part of the solution. And the reason that we come together and create these solutions that generate business is by working together, public and private, because one aspect that's not represented are governments.
Yeah.
And governments are a very important part of all of this to help us create solutions so that everybody within the value chain is incentivized. Yes, we need regulation, but incentives will work better to ensure that we develop these solutions that will scale.
I wanted to ask about that, so let's do that now, Shamima.
I was just going to build on very quickly, just to say one more example around that, because I think the power of partnership is really important here, but you also talked about financing and expense, right?
Yeah.
So the way that we try to think about this at Mastercard is to say, and I run the philanthropic work at Mastercard, it's one component of a capital stack, right? So philanthropy is the riskiest capital. So a lot of times what we'll do is we'll go in first and say, how do we de-risk some of the things that we're trying to do so that ultimately, what Rima describes, we call commercially sustainable social impact, which is how do we create programs that ultimately are commercially viable so that they can scale. And we have a very similar partnership going with Unilever in Africa, where Unilever's supply chain, also, they needed money to transact and buy supplies using credit. They didn't have the credit scores. We went to Unilever and said, if you actually look at the data, their purchasing power, you can see the behavior. And so we did work with the banking entity to create a process whereby these shop owners, these very small shop owners, who are mostly women, can get credit to purchase more. That's a win for the Unilever, it's a win for the banking system, and it's a big win for the shopkeeper.
Especially when it comes to sustainable trade. I mean, Sunil, you're nodding very much in agreement.
No, I was just going to say that, it pays for itself. Our cost of acquisition for a retail customer has come down from $350 a pop to $50. and the cost of servicing is down by over 60%. So for us, it's absolutely a no-brainer in terms of investing more and doubling down. Not only are you getting more customers at a cheaper cost, but your cost of delivery has come down significantly. So to answer the question, and to Rima's point and Shamina's point, that this pays for itself quite quickly.
Okay, just quickly, as we come towards the end, just a couple of quick fires of all of you. What do you need to hit your targets? What, in terms of a policy framework, or what is missing right now?
A harmonized policy framework. I think that's the biggest thing. Consistency, standards, so that we're a global company, we're a multinational company, but we have to be able to operate consistently across markets in order to scale and to serve the most people.
What would you say?
Collaboration and trust, because we all have to work together to be able to deliver these solutions, and it's not one part of the value chain that can solve it or can be regulated to solve it.
Okay. Sunil?
I think I'm just adding on enabling ecosystem, because while there's an objective which maybe on the financial services side the regulator has, you may not have equal amount of support from, say, a national identity register to onboard customers seamlessly, or from a credit bureau at the back end. So the whole ecosystem has to move in sync. Otherwise, you've got just one part wanting to, go towards a particular objective, but the rest is kind of pulling it back.
Okay, so for 2023, what is your call to action? Shamima?
Well, my call to action is, my name is Shamina. So
Sorry.
no, it's okay. But I think the call to action is it's time to scale.
Right.
It's time to scale. So let's work together to make it happen.
All right, Sunil.
For us, it's to put in more products and services onto the same platform, because it has a flywheel effect. And this is a fantastic journey, and I think we're somewhere in the middle of it.
And Rima?
It's all about action, and it's all about delivering results, and help us get there.
Okay, Shamina? And Rima, thank you so much. It's been a privilege to share the stage with you. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. And the best of luck as well with all your targets, because they are extraordinary.
Thank you so much.
Fantastic job. Thank you. Big round of applause, please. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful.